Hi, Matt. Welcome back to Hi Haley.
Thanks. Great to be back.
I
Number
know
three, I
you.
think.
Yeah, you're like our most reoccurring visitor so far. Wild. Well, I guess since the last time we spoke, I asked you what you were currently watching on TV. So has that changed?
It has. September came around, so it's now football season.
Of
So
course.
football, every game I can watch is on, college and pro. So Vikings have had a good start this year, 2-0. And then my Gophers are 2-1. So we're excited about that too.
So your Saturday and Sundays are now packed.
Correct.
Ugh. Well, thanks for taking the time today to hop on Hi Haley. I'm excited to talk about Power Pages. I feel like there's not a lot out there on it, so I think it'll be a cool thing for us to walk through today. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to go over creating a Power Pages site, kind of building on what we talked about last time where we created the model-driven app. So we'll just pull up our Chrome window here, and then we can get started. So Power Pages is actually on a different site than Power Platform, but for the most part, they talk together pretty well. So what we did is we just went to make.powerpages.microsoft.com, similar to how we go to make.powerapps.com. And then from here, we can actually create our different sites. So provisioning a new site takes a couple minutes, so I did that ahead of time here, but it is a blank page that we will start with. So what we're going to do is I name this show or this site TV show ratings. So what we'll do is just click the edit button, and then it's going to pull up my editor. So this is going to look pretty similar to our Canvas apps. And if anyone's familiar with kind of building WordPress or Squarespace sites, this is pretty similar. But the advantage to Power Pages over some of those other sites is that this can be built directly on top of our Dataverse data. So without us having to do anything like security authentications or messing with web APIs, while we can do that, out of the box, we don't have to. So now that my page is loaded here, we're going to see that we kind of have a blank slate here. So at the top, we have our navigation bar, and then we'll see that we have the ability to have users logged in as well. So we will do that as part of this, but we're just going to start off by editing the site's header. So we'll just change the name of it. So when I click edit, it'll bring me into edit mode here, and then we'll just say it's going to be called TV show ratings. So we'll rate our TV shows that we're watching. And if we want to, we can change the logo as well, but we're just going to leave that blank for now. Now, what we can also do is change our theme. So if we want to change the colors, I'm just going to pick, let's click purple for our Vikings here.
The most obnoxious purple.
No, this looks about right. So we'll do that, and then we're going to see that it automatically changes for us. Now we can also change some of these other brand colors as part of our theme, which will update things throughout the app or the website so that we don't have to change them on every form. It'll kind of flow through to all of our other forms. So let's just change this to white and see if it changes our text. Oh, let's try that again. Not cooperating today. But that's all right. We'll just leave it as purple for now, and then we can come back later when we talk about styling a little bit more. All right, so this is going to be our homepage here. So what we'll first do is we'll just make a list of all of our different TV show ratings that we have. And again, this builds off the data from our last video. So what we'll do is we'll pick one of these components to add to our page here. And since we just want to list all of our different TV show ratings that we already have, we're just going to click the list button. And then this is going to let me pick the table that we want to build the data off of. So I'm just going to go find our table here. We'll see there's just a bunch of other tables that are already out there from the standard solution, but we have our two tables that we built last time, TV show rating and TV show. So we'll just start with TV show rating here. And then what it's going to do, it's going to ask me what view we want the actual users to see. So in this case here, we'll just show the active TV show ratings. And then we can give the list a name. Now, this is important if we're going into kind of the advanced settings. We're changing stuff around that you can't necessarily do in the UI. So it's just nice to have a good name here that's easy to kind of remember. Now, in this case here, I don't have a lot going on, so I'm just going to leave it as the active TV show ratings, but just know that you can change this if you need to. Now, as far as the actions go, what we can also do is we can have the ability to create new records So I'm just going to click that here. And then we can actually have the system use a form to create a new record. Now, what we're going to see here is that I don't have the ability to select a form. And what that's telling me is that the form hasn't imported yet into the actual Power Page app. So we're just going to uncheck this for now, and then we'll go create that form in a little bit. But what you can also do is you can give the ability to edit the records, view any details you want to. But for now, we'll just leave this guy blank. I'm going to click OK, and then we're going to see that the system brought back all of the fields from our view that we created last time. So it's going to show me what the TV show name is, what rating we gave it, when it was created, who the owner of that record is, basically who created the record, the date we watched it, and then the ID. So now the other important thing to note is that everything in Power Pages is built on permissions. So in order to view that record, we have to give basically the system the ability to allow users to kind of look at the data. So we're just going to click new permission, and then we'll basically give the users the ability to view it. So what we're going to see here is the important parts are already filled in. So the name of the permission, I'm just going to change this to TV show ratings so that we know what table it's related to. That's going to match our table here. Again, it defaulted in from what we saw before. But this access type is going to tell you who has the ability to view it. So global access basically says anyone can access this, but we also have contact access. So this basically means any record that you own, you can see here. So this is really important if you have kind of sensitive data or personal data that you're putting into the view here, that you only want the users that own it to see it. And then, so we'll just click global access for this one. And then we're going to tell it what permissions we want to give users to. So we have the read access, update access, create access. In this case here, we just want our users to be able to read, update, and create. But if we also want to allow them to delete, we can do that here. Now, the last step we need to do is add a role. So this basically says who can view it. So we'll click administrators, but then here is the choice that we have of, do we want to allow anyone that's even not logged in to view it, or just authenticated users? So I'm going to just allow authenticated users. So basically what this is saying is that if I go to this website, I can only view the records if I'm logged in. So just do that here, and now we'll see that those two roles came up here. And what we saw is there's only 3 standard roles, but if we want to add more roles, we can do that as well as part of the security setup. So we'll just go ahead and click save here, and then hopefully this, that message went away for permissions, basically saying you don't have any permissions on this form. All right, so then with that, what we're going to do is we're going to click this preview button, and this will basically run the site in kind of live mode so that we can actually see what it looks like. So we're going to say desktop here. Now, if we want to view it on our mobile phone, you can scan this QR code and it'll bring you to that link, so you don't have to type in the link for the actual website. So I click desktop there. And what we're going to see is at the top, it's kind of using a default URL. But if you want to make a custom URL, you can do that to point to your specific page. All right, so now that I've kind of opened up the page here, we're going to see that it's saying I don't have permission to view these records. And that is because we are not currently signed in. So what we're going to do is we'll create an account. So I'm going to click sign in on the top right. And this is going to bring me to a page where I can actually register. So what we're going to see is that kind of out of the box, you have 2 options: sign in with a local account or sign in with an external account. And the default is kind of the Azure Active Directory. So this is useful if you are creating a site for kind of your internal team and you want to utilize the single sign-in functionality that Microsoft has. You can use the Azure AD here. But there's also a bunch of options to create, like sign in with Facebook, sign in with Google, things like that. And you can turn those on in the page settings. For now, we're just going to click register and create a new account. And then it's going to ask me for 4 things here: email, username, password. And then the nice part about this is out of the box, it comes with password resets, things like that. So you don't have to build any of that when you're making your accounts here. So we'll just put
If
in our
needed,
email
though, like
address.
this, you could customize.
Yes, you can. It's a little different than customizing the other forms,
Mhm.
but there is options to do that. And it does have some password validation so that you have characters, numbers, capital letters, things like that. All right, so now what we have is we have a form where it's going to basically ask me for my profile information. So this is technically customizable as well. It's just a little bit different from the other customization modes, but you can add in additional fields. You can take away fields. Now, the important thing to note about this profile is that this account actually gets created in the contact table, so the default contact table in Power Platform. So let's give it the required field here. And then we'll click update. And then it's going to bring me back to the page that I started off of. Now, in this case, it's going to be just the home page. But if we had other pages that we were trying to log into, it would always bring me to that sign-in page, and it's going to bring you back to where you started. So then what we're going to see here is we now have our information populated now that we've signed in. And it's basically going to show all that information from that view. So with that, what I'm going to do is go back to the Design Studio, and then we're going to start making some changes here. So to do that, there's two options. We can either go through our Power Apps setup in Dataverse, or we can directly edit the tables from Power Pages here. And this is to change things such as views, forms, things like that. So we're just going to click on the Data tab, and then we're going to see all the tables that are currently in our site here. So right now we just have that one table because we created a list for it. But now if I want to create a new form, I'm going to go to the Forms tab. And this is basically going to allow us to create a new form for creating a new rating. So
Will this save back to Power Platform?
Yes, it does. It syncs back and forth. But what we're going to see is that sometimes that page, so it recognizes that there's a page here, but it doesn't always bring it in the first time. So usually what you're going to want to do anyways is if you're creating an external view of one of your forms, you don't want to have all the information that you had on your initial Power Pages one or your Power Apps form. So what we're going to do here, we'll create a new form. The way I like to do it is just prefix it with external so that I know not to put any sensitive data or anything like that onto a form. So we'll go ahead and click create. And then we're going to see a very similar view to what we see on our Power Pages or Power Apps forms, where we can add new fields, change fields around, things like that. So what we'll do here is we'll just clean up some of this stuff. Let's go ahead and hide these. All right, so then what we'll do is we'll create a new component. And this is, again, just like our model-driven forms. We can create different tabs, different sections. But what I will say about the tabs is that they don't render the same way they do in Power Apps. So it's usually better just to kind of stick to these sections here. So we'll create a section, and then we'll name it General Information. And then we'll add a couple fields to this guy. So we're going to click the Add Fields, and then we'll say what the TV show is. We'll say what the rating is. Say our ID, our date watched, and that should be all we need here. So then I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Publish. And just like Power Apps, sometimes it takes a second or two to publish. All right. So then from there, all right, so now that we're back on our main page here after we created our form, what we can do is we can add details buttons, create new records buttons, things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and click Edit List. We're going to go ahead and click Actions. And then we're going to allow users to create new records, so basically create new ratings. So we'll click our form. This is the one we created in the step before. So something I do want to highlight is that sometimes it's a little finicky on when it's actually going to show up in your drop-down list here. So what I usually recommend is just creating a different page and add the form onto it or create a new form from there. And then it should show up in your list here. We're going to give it a name. So we'll say new rating. And then we're also going to have a view details record. So I'm going to click view details, select our form again. And we'll just say view rating. So then we'll click done, and then we're going to see it's going to reload here. So we're going to see there's a new button up the top that says new rating. And then we also have little caret menus that will allow you to view those other options that we had before. Now, as of today, there's no way to just put a button onto the actual form here without having that caret drop down. So what I'd recommend in that case is just building a custom form using this edit code button. And what that's going to do is going to basically open up this solution into Visual Studio Online, and that will allow you to make actual HTML, JavaScript, CSS changes to the actual form. So out-of-the-box forms are great. The lists are great. But if you need to do any sort of advanced customization, things like that, it's pretty easy to create your own tables using just standard HTML, things like that. But now that we have this ready here, we're going to click preview again. And we're going to see it's going to reload the page I had before. So I'll click over to that. And we're going to see now we have our new rating button as well as our caret dropdown. So if I click the caret dropdown, we'll see we have our view rating button. But we're just going to go ahead and create a new rating here. And then what we're going to see is we have that form that we had before. So we've got our TV show, we've got our actual rating, we've got the ID, which we'll have to go back and basically hide this so the user doesn't put anything in there. But we'll just select a TV show from our list. So this time I'm going to say The Office. Click select, and then we'll see that it shows up in our navigation there. We're going to give it a rating. So we'll say 8. And then we'll say what date we watched it. So it's kind of nice here that it comes with out of the box date pickers, things like that. But again, if you'd like to, you can use that web API and create your own form, which will allow you to do additional things like defaulting in specific dates. So a common use case would be putting in today's date. You can all do that through JavaScript. So we'll just click submit here. And now we're also going to see that it gives you that validation that we had before. So we did that video quite a long time ago, so I didn't remember all of our different values here, but we're just going to say this is going to be a 4. We'll click submit, and hopefully that goes through. All right, good. So we'll need to change the permissions here. So this is one of those key things that you need to make sure you test through everything, make sure everyone has the right permissions. And you're also going to see that it is pretty stringent on those permissions, so having those is definitely key. All right, so this one, we'll just go take back a look at our security setup. So I'm going to go to the security tab here, and we're going to go to our table permissions. And then we're going to see that we also have a TV show in here. I'm guessing that's the one. So we're going to click edit. We'll just give this one all the permissions. We'll do the same for this one just to make sure we can get through this here. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this sync button. It's usually not necessary, but I usually just click it to make sure everything's kind of in the right spot before I go and try to view my preview again. So just refresh this. And then we'll try to create a new rating here. We'll select our TV show, give it our rating, and then the date we watched it on. All right, and then we'll see that that came in. So thing to note here is that when you're creating records from Power Pages, it's not necessarily going to be authenticated on your Active Directory user, but it's going to be creating these records as the contact. So what we'd want to do in this case, since we've now decided that, all right, this app is going to be external facing, we might want to bring in the contact field instead of the owner field. But whenever a change is made to any of those records, the owner is always going to be this, the portals user, which is essentially kind of the service account for our Power Page site. All right, so now that we've kind of looked at all of our records here, we have the ability to go back to home by clicking the home button, or you can click this company name as well. We'll just click home. And it'll bring me right back to where the home page was. But what we also have the ability to do is sign out, review our profile again, based on our contact information up on the top right. So the last step we'll do is we'll just look at the styling options a little bit. So I'm going to go back to my settings here. And we've looked at the data tab before. We've looked at our security. Now we're going to go to the styling tab. And then we're going to see that there's a bunch of different out-of-the-box themes that can be used. What I'd recommend is just picking one of the themes and then changing it from there. So what we can do is we can change the options for all of our different colors that show up. So as an example, we'll see on the footer, this is kind of a gray color. It's probably this guy here. So if we change this to kind of a gold, change this guy too. We'll see that our bottom footer changes as well. All right, so all of these font options here kind of go off of standard HTML tags. So think of this as being like the H1, this as being the H2. It's kind of that same concept there.
Mhm.
So whenever you have a title or you put in any text, you can choose these different font styles. So if we wanted to change the title as an example, we'll change it to this brush script, and we'll see it changes up at the top there. And you can also change the font size. So we'll just make this mega title, and then we'll change this to white.
This is so exotic.
All right, and then we can also change our buttons here. If we want to change the color of the button, let's pick yellow. Ooh, that's a little hard to read.
Very.
But we can change the font on that. So we'll just change this font to purple. Like that. Here we go. There we go. There's our purple. And then we can do the same with links, and then also our spacing, our standard spacing between different sections and elements that we put on there. So then with that, we'll click Save. And now every new page I create will use these same font settings, color settings, things like that. So it's kind of a one-stop shop to update your different settings there. All right, so I think that would be it for kind of an intro here. Now we can do another video down the road of editing code and making custom tables, things like that, using the Liquid language and HTML and JavaScript. But for now, it's just kind of the basics.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that walkthrough. Appreciate that. Very
Yeah.
insightful. All right, we'll have to get you back on, but thanks, Matt.
All right, can't wait.